We're live.
There's so much time. Yeah, there is. All right. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It is March 14th at 7 p.m. At this point, you'll stand for our invocation by Councilmember Merchant, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, grant us the serenity, patience, and wisdom to ensure the best possible outcome for the citizens of Helotes. Guide us and direct us to do what we believe is just, right, and worthy of your praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get all around here, some of this stuff out of the way. No worries. All right. Okay. At this point, we're going to start with a public presentation by SAWS. We have a representative here. There we go.
Well, howdy.
Howdy.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, it is a pleasure for me to be here this evening to give y'all a little bit of information. I have with me Martha Wright and Cecilia Picasso, and they're here in case there's any other potential questions. But I am in the Conservation Department at SAWS, project coordinator, and I oversee the drought management program for SAWS. And I'm here tonight to provide y'all with some information about some proposed changes that SAWS is going to make to drought rules that affect SAWS customers. Now, at the present time, all of our customers, regardless of where they live, have programs available to them from SAWS, whether it's rebates, whether it's free consults for their irrigation systems, and all of our other education and incentive programs. So we want to be able to continue that process. And we see a lot of our, especially irrigation consults in places like Helotes and some of the other incorporated cities. What's really interesting is that we, with the electronic meter program that's currently underway, we are about 120,000 meters in out of 560,000 so far. And we're learning a lot about water use patterns with these new meters. Customers are learning a lot about their water use patterns, because if they have an electronic meter, they can see their water use by the hour within 24 hours of that meter sending that information to SAWS. So it's a fascinating process. Martha is actually in our conservation department working with customers to help them understand that information. So the challenges that we hope to handle with these proposed changes involve a lot of things that have happened and realizations that have happened in the past couple of years. Water use patterns are not the same as they were 10 years ago. The past couple of summers, we have seen water use actually increase dramatically, where you would think it would actually go the other direction as people try to conserve in a drought. But we have seen water use go up. We have seen compliance with the rules actually go down in the past couple of years. And a lot of that non-compliance is occurring in a very small segment of SAWS customers. And so those small segments are actually using quite a bit of the water that's produced on a daily basis. So what we want to do is try to make some updates to the drought rules so that they can be fairly enforced equally across all soft customers. And that's something that is not actually occurring at the present time. So here's what I'm talking about. This graph here shows water use patterns over the past several years. And you'll notice in the time period that led up to 2011, this represents water use per person per day. And so back around 2011, that number was around 145. Last year it was 121. And you can see in the interim between 2011 and last year, 2 years ago, there was a gradual decrease in the average water use per person because we didn't have these extreme weather events. But when you have an extreme weather event, like a really bad drought, and 2011 was the last time we really had a bad one before 2022 and 23. And so we saw last year, especially, we saw our water use go up 10% higher than what was planned, almost 10 billion gallons. And so that trend started in 22. We saw it again last year with an increased water consumption across the system that is just not in our normal water plan. And so if we don't address something like this, it can be very costly in the form of having to buy water or very large water plants in the future. And so how can we address this without having to buy more water or build another water plant? So these proposed changes mostly are looking at how we handle drought enforcement. And right now, 90% of SAWS customers follow the rules. They water once a week. They follow the watering hours of 7 to 11. And we see usage drop about 3,000 gallons a month if a customer happens to receive a violation. Now, these violations right now, of course, are only happening for City of San Antonio customers. And because the watering rules also say that you can't use your sprinkler or hose and sprinkler on the weekends, we see drops of up to 50 to 80 million gallons a day on the weekends in the summer compared to weekday use. Last summer, the average weekday use might have been 300 million gallons a day for the City of San Antonio. In other words, what we put into the system. So if you can reduce that by 50 to 80 million gallons on a Saturday and a Sunday, it does help. And we do see the Edwards Aquifer bounce back on the weekends when that happens. So the problem is where we cannot enforce the rules is we see really high use. And that is places that are outside the San Antonio city limits in other cities like Helotes. Although Helotes is not, the average water use in Helotes is not that high. Commercial irrigation sites in the past couple of years are not following the rules. We are seeing sites violate the rules multiple times, pay fines, and they just keep going. And the amount of the citations haven't changed in 20 years. $137 fine through the City of San Antonio for those customers. And because they have to go to court, it's a very onerous process. And sometimes it can take months after we have notified someone of a violation before they get a letter from court. So it's a very onerous process. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to make sure that the rules can be applied fairly across all SAWS customers, regardless of where they live. And how can we maximize the savings of water by having a minimal impact on the 90% that are following the rules? That's very important to us. What can we do for these commercial sites to help curb their violations? And then lastly, and most importantly, that we're really looking at is how can we improve the workmanship of irrigation systems in new construction? What can happen to move this process along is the SAWS board can adopt a rule that can be put into our utility service regulations that pertain to drought rules. And so A utility service regulation can apply to all SAWS customers, regardless of where they live, whereas an ordinance only applies to the customers in that city, as it does right now. The city ordinance for where SAWS can enforce the rules can only happen in San Antonio and in the ETJ of San Antonio. So the board can adopt a rule for the utility service regulations, and then the city of San Antonio can pass a fee or a rate that would be affected by SAWS customers. And what we are proposing to do is get away from the court-based citation process and move to a non-compliance water violation fee that would go on the bill. It's something that's more direct, and it would still allow us to do our normal enforcement and education and monitoring, but it would allow us to be able to work with all of our customers across the service area. And as it stands right now, when we have a patrol officer that's out in the middle of the night doing a patrol, he takes a photo from his vehicle or her vehicle, and we have a mobile app that they file their cases on, and it comes back to SAWS, and then we process that case through and file an affidavit with court. We would not be filing affidavits. We would still be able to have a dispute resolution process outside of court through SAWS and an independent committee. And so that's important to us. Continuing to be able to communicate with customers about their violations is also very important to us. And so the biggest thing is not involving court. It is an onerous process, and if commercial businesses can sometimes take 6 to 9 months to get a letter from court after a violation is filed by us. And so we want that process to go much faster and be easier to communicate back and forth with those customers. So by shifting away from the criminal process and making these rules apply to all of our customers, whether they're in the ETJ, whether they're in a separately incorporated city, these fees on the bill are much more logical for us to pursue, because right now, if someone gets multiple violations, their fee is not escalated at court as it stands. So they pay the same fine whether they violate once or 10 times. And so if it's a large commercial site that uses thousands of dollars in water a month for their landscape, the $137 fine means nothing. And so the ability to be able to escalate a fine, especially as we get deeper into drought, sends a signal that that water use is very important, and the proper water use is very important. And so the really neat thing is that we're working on right now is for residential customers who have a first-time violation, we're working on a water education class that they can take, similar to defensive watering. And so they can take the class and have their first citation or first violation waived within a certain period of time. And so we're excited about that. And we're actually doing all the video recording and prep for that right now. The other concerns that we have currently in the city ordinance, drip irrigation is currently allowed to run in stage 2 up to 7 days a week during the watering hours. And drip irrigation uses a lot of water despite its application. It can, if it runs for 7 days or 3 or 4 days, it can use as much or more water as a conventional above ground irrigation system. The other problem we're seeing, especially in new construction, is that these volume builders are putting in irrigation systems in their new construction, and they're not quite being built to Texas TCEQ standards for irrigation construction. And as soon as they're in the ground, they're being built to use 20 to 30% more water than they should if they were built properly. And so we want to be able to have a hand in looking at those irrigation plans and some sort of a tool also to try to discourage high water use when we get into really deep stages of drought, like stage 3. We've never gone into stage 3 in San Antonio because it's a twice a month watering restriction, and it would be logistically very difficult to manage for customers, especially for those who are very frugal water users, to be able to impact them in that way. So drip irrigation, if it's installed per manufacturer specifications, and if it is installed in the most common way in San Antonio, which is a 12-inch hole spacing in the tubing and then 12 inches apart, a grid pattern, it can use up to 1.4 inches of water per hour. And above ground spray irrigation and in a similar environment uses 1.5 inches of water per hour and applies that much water. And that is the misconception about drip. Drip is extremely efficient. It applies water to the roots. You don't have evaporation. But the misconception is that you have to run drip longer to be able to apply the right amount of water. And the manufacturer specifications, the research studies that we've done, that Texas A&M has done, prove that that's not quite true, that drip irrigation does not need to run several days a week or for hours at a time to be able to apply water. And that's what's happening now. So we want to be able to update the rules to move to a once a week schedule for drip, just like any other type of irrigation. That's one of the things we're looking at. And we want to be able to help our larger customers that use a lot of drip irrigation to still be able to water their areas once a week, but be able to do it in a way that they can get it done in their window. And this process that we're developing and simplifying is called a large property variance. And so if you have an area, for instance, we have some pretty large HOAs on the north side of San Antonio that have drip irrigation under miles of median. And let's say they have 17 miles of medians and they have drip irrigation under all that grass. That type of situation can't all be watered in one day. And so we would be able to issue a large variant so that they could water some sections of that so that everything gets watered once a week, but not all in the same day. And we're working, I think we have 11 current entities we're working with to get their large property variances set for 2024. And so we want to be able to do that. We're also looking at variances for entities that have a lot of trees, especially in parking lots, to be able to keep them established, because parking lots are an oven in the summertime for trees and grass that are in a little tiny median. And so we want to be able to have variances for trees to get them established, and for those who have small vegetable gardens at home, to be able to give them a variance to be able to water their vegetable garden with drip irrigation, because that's the best way to water vegetables. To talk a little bit more about these irrigation systems, we would like to be able to augment, of course, the city of San Antonio's inspection process so that we can get a look at irrigation plans for these residential construction projects. At present, the city of San Antonio does not look at residential irrigation plans when they do irrigation inspections for permits. And we're going to take on that responsibility to get a look at these plans and see if that plan actually matches the irrigation that was put in at the house. We don't want for a builder to have one plan and then they build 20 houses and the plan is different for each house. It should be different for each house. So we want to get our hands on those systems to make sure that they're built properly so that those summer irrigation usages are more as efficient as they can be on an irrigation system. I'd also like to bring up that part of this process to update the rules is we are going to be updating the watering hours for stage 1 and 2 because mainly, and you all know when we get into hot summers, CPS always asked us to curtail our use from 3 to 7 p.m. Please, turn off your thermostat from 3 to 7 p.m. to save electricity. Well, they do the same for saws, and they asked us to curtail in the evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. Well, 7 to 11 is the watering period in the evening, and we're pumping a lot of water to feed those irrigation systems and a lot of electricity. So what we are proposing is a change to, since we're currently in stage 2, the current hours are 7 to 11 p.m., AM and PM. The proposed stage 2 hours would be 5 to 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. to midnight, so that we don't have irrigation in that 3 to 7 p.m. window. And for irrigation systems, that would be a pretty simple change to make. But for those who don't have irrigation, there has to be something else. They don't want to get out at 9 o'clock at night and put their hose sprinkler out, or at 5 in the morning. So anyone who does not have irrigation is going to have the opportunity to get a variance for 7 to 10 p.m. So they can still be able to put their hose sprinkler out in the evening and not be in the dark. And we're going to be very glad to work on that with the customers. Stage 1 hours, currently midnight to 11 and 7 p.m. to midnight. They'll move midnight to 10 a.m. and then the 9 p.m. to midnight. If we ever see stage 1 again, it feels like stage 2 has been here forever. Lastly, the changes to stage 3. Right now, it is a twice a month watering schedule, and it's usually it would be used for emergencies. And we've never gone into stage 3 at SAWS. And we propose making stage 3 similar to stage 2, same hours, once a week watering, but there would be a high use surcharge for customers who use above a certain level of water. And we don't know what that is yet. We are currently working with a rate consultant to determine what that water use number would be and what the surcharge rate would be, as well as these fees on the bill. We don't know what they're going to be yet. And we hope to get that information in the next week. We're supposed to hear that in the next week. As soon as that happens and it goes through its internal review, we're going to start publishing that information out to all of our customers. Where can you see this information, you ask? You go to wateringrules.com. That is a site where we are publishing the draft of the utility service regulations, where we are publishing the draft of the changes we are proposing to the city ordinance for San Antonio. And then we have a survey where people can go take the survey and provide us with input and give us their feelings on the 5 major questions that we're looking to address. And so it's wateringrules.com. And we also have some frequently asked questions there as well. And we're updating those constantly as we get more survey responses. And we have been out in the community speaking to various stakeholder groups. We've been speaking to city councils such as yourselves. And you can see by there on the screen, 69 presentations, over 1,000 people. We're going to add this one tonight to the list. And we want to be able to get this information out so that we can get as much feedback as possible before we present this information to the SAWS board and city council. Now, this next one's kind of tiny. And so, but these are the 5 major questions that we ask. And that is, does the ordinance apply fairly? What is your importance of it applying fairly to customers? And the next question is, the highest use surcharge for stage 3, what is the support for that? Limiting drip irrigation to once a week, what is the feeling about that? Improving the workmanship of new irrigation systems, and then changing the watering hours. Those are the 5 major questions. And for the most part, there's good support. There are some concerns for the stage 3 surcharge, especially customers who have large properties and are concerned about how much water they use just in their normal activities. So we're currently working to update these utility service regulations for all SAWS customers. And we're looking to get these fees on the bill approved through the board and through city council. Looking to change the stage 3 to a high use surcharge and once a week watering, and then the irrigation plan review and inspection process. So what is our timeline? So as soon as we get the information on these fees, hopefully in the next week or so, they are going to be filtered through a whole bunch of departments at SAWS and reviewed. Then we are going to get this information on wateringrules.com. We're going to start sending this information to our customers in April. Our hope is to send the information in April. And then we hope to present this information to the SAWS board and the San Antonio City Council in May. That is the current timeline goal. And if they happen to be approved in May, it's possible these things could take effect by July. But it all depends on the fees before we even know what that timeline really starts to look like. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for coming. I have a couple of points I want to make, and then I'll open up to any other questions. Of course, you want fees and fines to be as quick and as efficient as possible, so nobody can get out of them. They can be whacked with it, and you don't be burdened with the proof. I get that. However, you have de facto fees already, and the increased prices that you charge for water in stage 1, 2, and 3, as well as ratcheted up prices based on gallons per usage. So if you have a heavy user that's watering 3 or 4 times, they pay a penalty for the amount of gallons they're using, plus the stage surcharge, plus like CPS does with use this much electricity, pay this rate, you use this much electricity, you pay even a higher rate. So having additional fees above on that is a bit onerous in my opinion. I have a significant question that you can't answer here, but to take back. Why did SAWS do such a poor job in planning for water use? For example, the figures that you use, you showed that we had the greatest increase in 10 years. And you obviously planned because the rate difference there, what we had now per use per person over that year increase equates to the 9.7 billion. Why would you guys plan on the lowest gallon per use in the history of SAWS as your baseline? You should be using a baseline curve, which on average would have put it about 130, which would have we would have been under that this past year or so. That seems like bad planning.
I can actually answer that.
Sure.
The one X factor that I don't think anybody was expecting these past 3 years was for San Antonio to become such a popular destination. Our population in San Antonio in the whole area has increased way more than expected in the past 3 years, which affects that bottom line. And so that's part of it.
Well, that doesn't change the gallons per customer. Gallons per customer used has no bearing on total usage, except for the 9.7 does, but the gallons per. So if you're figuring total gallons per person, we're well under long run average, and we're near the lowest we've ever been in the history of SAWS. So it just sounds like bad planning on SAWS part. Fourth, reduction. We ought to take a look at some of the causes. Like, for example, San Antonio has more trees per capita and per square foot than any other major city that I can think of and that I know of. But we might be the most treed city in the entire United States. Our tree policies are absolutely insane and should be addressed, because you look up in the hill country and there's no water running, the dry creeks everywhere. People do what's called reclamation. In other words, they cut all the trees down, particularly the cedar. Next thing you know, they've got running water in their dry creek beds. We have way too many trees that are using way more water than the population in total, as I know you are aware of. And we ought to be taking a look at asking the city of San Antonio to take a look at their tree ordinances. I'm a firefighter for San Antonio. We can't even drive down the streets. There's so many trees and so much overhang. Maybe a reduction of the trees by 50% might be a good step in taking a look at what we need to do to take a look. We still have more trees than just about any other city. Another option is when we take a look at some of the watering requirements that San Antonio places on every commercial property. When you open up a commercial property, you are required by code to put in trees and to have watering, to put in 1 inch per day, every day, all the time, or thereabouts. Has been adjusted since the last time I had to apply for a permit in my construction company years ago. But the point is that why? Maybe tell San Antonio to hold their horses on planting another 100,000 trees and take a look at stop adding to the problem when we're trying to solve a problem. Furthermore, instead of adding more fees, fines, we need to be also taking a look at what's fair is fair. You can tell through all these RFID meters exactly when we're watering. I know, because I've had to have my old one replaced because it was broken, and next thing you know, we can see exactly when we watered, right? But we're still getting charged sewer fees for that. And that what's fair is we're not using the sewer on those gallons. So when you can point to me and say, hey, we're going to fine you because you used an extra 600 gallons today for your watering, whatever cycle that is, go ahead and give me the credit for the $600 on the sewer, but you're not. And there needs to be some equity in what you guys are charging. Sounds like what you're doing here is not actually conserving water, but how can we increase our fees massively to address budget issues? And we're not really taking a look at some of the core problems that are causing the addition of watering requirements, such as the amount of trees we have and other ordinances that are outside of the SAWS department. So I would encourage you to take a look and bring those requests to City Council in San Antonio and see if we can do some better master planning. And then finally, your repairs. Sir, that's a shambles. 48 watt, what'd you lose? 100 million gallons on that 48-inch water main break that we couldn't even do hydrants as a fire department because for the entire northwest, San Pedro to 151, that area is reduced in water service, and it took you 10 days. 48 water, I can't even calculate how much water that'd be. And hydrants are going leaking. You know the list, I'm sure.
Mhm.
I know you know because I'm the one that submits them for my district. Out of control. We ought to take a look at maybe we should be finding saws for not repairing in a timely fashion, because now you're having to come and fine the entire public for barely keeping their lawns alive while you're not repairing in a timely fashion. So I ask you to take those back for consideration, not really for discussion today, but just points of interest.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
So from what I'm understanding, everyone is going to be paying a non-compliance fee, whether we're compliant or not.
No, it's only if a violation is observed by a patrol staff person. That's the surcharge on stage. If we go into stage 3 rules, that's where a surcharge would apply to all the water over a certain amount on the bill. But a non-compliance fee would be equivalent to a citation in the old terms. It would just be a water violation, a rules violation.
So the way they're changing it, I just want some clarification, if council doesn't know that, so outside of San Antonio, you cannot be fined because you can't go to the municipal court to get fined. So what they're doing is now they're saying, okay, across the board, we're gonna just put a fee so we can just charge everyone regardless if you're inside or outside
Well,
of San
that's the
Antonio.
question I just asked, and
Yeah.
he just said the opposite of what you just said.
No, it's the same.
So
So
we are going to be paying a fee, whether we're compliant or not, to level out the
No,
playing field.
No, ma'am.
No,
no, the fee is only like if on the unfortunate event, let's say a patrol staff is driving down the street, they see sprinklers running at a home and it's not their day. So that would be a rules violation. As it stands right now, our staff member would put a case into our system. We would notarize an affidavit, file it at court issues a fine. Under the new system, our staff member would still file a case with a photo, and then it would come into our system and we would process it with a certain amount of time for potential dispute or questions, or if that person wants to take the water education class. After that point, the fee would be added to their bill for that rules violation.
Okay, so
you did skip a thing. So right now, if you're not in San Antonio, they cannot fine you.
That is,
Okay.
I had mentioned that earlier,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
we
they can't fine you. So right
Currently, they
now,
can't find us, but now they will be, because they'll be utilizing, instead of a court-issued ticket, it will be a
a
service charge fee
fee.
on your bill.
The questioner, and I'm sorry to.
But it's only for
interrupt you.
those who get a citation.
Yeah, it's
not
only for
all
rules
customers.
violations.
It's only gonna be for
Okay.
those customers who are caught
Right.
watering on the wrong day,
Yes.
violating. the
I
rules.
understand what
Can
you're
you
saying.
qualify
Yes.
with caught me?
Okay, I have another question.
Observed by patrol staff.
I have another
Sorry.
question. You said that there's 10% who are the ones who are the biggest users. Can you give us an idea of who these 10%, you said commercial properties?
It's residential and commercial properties. They use more than 90% of the rest of the customers. I mean, it varies, but on average, that number is usually about 20,000 gallons a month in the summer.
Okay.
Are we talking about a golf course? Are we talking about?
It would be normal commercial properties and residential. Or is it just residential?
So it's both. And what we're looking to do with the stage 3 surcharge is to set a threshold. We're waiting for the rate consultants that Nathan mentioned to get back to us with what that threshold will be, but we're going to set a threshold. It's looking like, no promises, but it's looking like it's going to be 18 to 20,000 gallons, somewhere in that range. And any customers who use over that amount, residential and commercial, any customers who use over that amount would have that surcharge applied if we were in stage 3. So as Nathan mentioned, we've never gone to stage 3 before. SAWS stage 3, City of San Antonio stage 3, not EAA stage 3, but we'd be able to apply that surcharge. We are looking at some very large sites that have very large meters. We'll use 18 to 20,000 gallons very quickly. So we're looking at having a different threshold. Again, we're waiting for the rate consultant to get back to us on this, but having a different threshold for some of those sites with very large meters.
Yes.
The stages, we're in stage 2 still at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I remember a time when we weren't in any, are we always in some stage?
No, so it's based on the Edwards Aquifer level. The way ordinance is currently written, City of San Antonio ordinance, it says that we shall go into stage 1 or stage 2, depending on the aquifer level. And not to get into too many details on this, but basically if the aquifer level drops below 660 feet for the 10-day rolling average drops below 660 feet, we go into stage 1. So we've been in stage 2 since April of 2022. So coming up on 2 years.
Okay. One other thing is when someone has a break in their lawn or something.
Yes.
And the water runs and runs, you don't even realize it until the
Yes.
next day. Then you get this enormous bill.
Yes.
How is that going to figure in on this, the non-compliance?
Straightforward. And the current policy is if someone has a really bad leak that they repair at home, they can submit their receipts to customer service at SAWS. And then there's a process where they look at the water use after the repair to determine what the spike was. And then there's a leak adjustment of some percentage of the spike that comes back. And so that would be the same thing if we were in stage 3.
I can confirm that works. We had that incident at our house and they
Oh,
were good. It took a couple months to figure out what the average was and they gave us a credit back on the bills.
Yeah, well, it happened to me too. I mean, I got a $900 bill because of something like that. And it took 2 or 3 months to get reimbursed.
Yes.
But y'all won't automatically charge that fee, you know what I mean, the fee.
If there's the fee will probably already be charged on the bill that happened on, and then we'll be able to work with you through the leak adjustment process to reimburse that back, right? Along with the leak adjustment. But a lot of that's going to be improved with our new electronic meters, where you should be able to find out much quicker if you have that kind of an issue.
So you don't have to wait
and so
for
it
a month.
doesn't linger, right?
Yes.
Yes, I do. So 2, are there any breaks for those of us who use like way below the average? Because like I'm just a single guy in a house and it's just me.
More power to you.
That's it. I just
Yeah,
get
I
the
mean,
whatever the rate
You're
is. I
just
just keep
paying whatever
going.
that low.
We're already getting
Like I'm the guy that you like,
Yes.
but I can't get a break.
You're already paying lower rates because
Gotcha.
you're using less.
Yeah.
Next question. So in the beginning, you're suggesting, or you're going to city council in San Antonio, and you're gonna suggest ordinance. When you're doing all these talks in around here at all these different municipalities and the places that you're speaking to, are you suggesting that we also?
Well, most
Make,
incorporated cities
make,
currently have some sort of drought
Fee or
rules.
rate for non-compliance?
No,
Do that?
no. Most incorporated cities have some drought rules on the books already, and for some, it is difficult to enforce. And so we look to augment that process and help the cities out with this.
Okay, so you're not suggesting that Helotes come up with a fee
No.
or some kind of schedule?
Absolutely not.
Ordinance. Okay, good.
So with the new meters, you're gonna have a lot more information available, especially in your high use
Yes.
areas. But from what I gathered from what you said, that your violations though are gonna be
based upon observing it only.
That is correct.
So you won't be using the high meters to say, okay, person's watering for using water for 30 minutes straight during the day. That'll be a non-issue.
So what we have done some pilot programs where we have notified customers who appear to be watering multiple days a week to let them know it appears that this is happening at your home. You might want to check your sprinkler controller. And typically we see within a couple of weeks, we see that water use go closer to compliance or to compliance. And so we want to try to use the meter to educate, but we will never use the meter to issue a violation.
Because the reason I ask that is, many people in our area have swimming pools.
Mhm.
And as far as I know, you have no restrictions on how often you can.
That's right.
Not say refill, but.
Yeah, you got to keep it topped off.
Yeah, top it off.
Mhm.
So I do have one, and there's occasionally I have to run 30 to 45 minutes. So with the new meter, you're saying myself and other people are not going to be penalized for that because you're not going to perceive it as being a non-compliance issue.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, that's just, I know a lot of people
I
have
mean,
concerns about.
we don't have any algorithms that disaggregate the water. So. I mean,
But we're not gonna issue citations, waterway citations.
No.
Based on the AMI data.
Strictly observant.
Correct,
Yes.
it has to be observed, yes.
Yes.
And in fact, we have to take a picture of it. So in the case that somebody gets a citation and they don't believe that it was their property or whatever, they can request that photo.
Because there's so many different items, occurrences that happen that, can be misconstrued.
Absolutely. And that's why we're not using the meter.
I mean, yes. So I think.
Absolutely.
our homeowners will
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do have one question real quick. You said on your survey, your number one question was that something about equality,
The equity of applying the rules
applying
to
the
all
rules
customers.
to all. Have you also considered the equity of applying the fees? Because if you're outside of the city of San Antonio, we're charged a higher rate than inside, than if you're part of San Antonio. So, if you're talking about equity within that, I'm just, saying it's not equal across when you're looking at fees and rates.
I
We can
don't,
take that.
yeah, we can take that one back for sure.
Okay.
You're going to be applying the penalties equally across all your customers now. It seems like you would do that, you give the same benefit with the rates.
We'll take that comment back. I haven't heard that comment come up yet, but we'll definitely take it back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Along with these, please.
Yes, oh yeah. I wrote
All of
them down.
those.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming.
Mayor, council, thank you.
All right. On to item number 3, which is actually a recognition of our Theater in Our Schools month of particularly our O'Connor High School Thespian Troupe 5872. We have a representative or representatives that want to come up. One of the things we really strive to do over the last couple of years is enjoy a good working relationship with our schools, and particularly O'Connor, and been to several of our concerts and choirs and plays and whatnot, and we enjoy. We even had an intern here held at the City Hall for a year, and look forward to continuing good working relationship with O'Connor School in particular. But Bill reached out to us a while ago to recognize Theater in Our Schools month, and so we are going to offer this out a proclamation to you. It says, whereas every year in March, the American Allegiance for Theater and Education, the Educational Theater Association, and the International Thespian Society partner for Theater in Our Schools month to raise awareness about the significance of theater in children's education and draw attention to the necessity for all students to have access to quality theater programs. And whereas theater is a vital component of arts education, and the arts have been part of life since the very beginning, from storytelling and cave games to acting and the advertisements we see today. Whereas active participation in theater contributes to the heightening of students' developmental skills, allowing success in the future through speech development, analyzing nonverbal communication, problem solving, leadership roles, listening, understanding human experiences, adapting to and respecting others' diverse ways of thinking. Whereas as a creative outlet or as the beginning steps toward a professional career, theater programs in our schools and community to shape the future by continuing and improving diversity, creativity, and culture. Now therefore, I, Mayor Rich Whitehead, together with City Council, proclaim March as National Theater in Our Schools Month. And we recognize the Sandra Day O'Connor High School SNM Troop 5872 and urge all citizens to celebrate theater programs and the students that participate in them as we work toward the future where theater education creativity flourish in the Helotes community. Yeah, City of Helotes, thank you very much for your participation. Thank you and the entire Chesapeake troop. We're a good portion of them. And I think we can have some parents here. We really appreciate your support for this group and for all our students. Thank you very much. I told them they could feel free to leave because they got more than they bargained with the SAWS presentation, I'm sure. You said we're going first. Got him. A little bit of imposed civic education. At this point, we're going to go to citizens to be heard. We have several that have signed up. First up, we have Terry Gray. If you can please come state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to share anything you want. We cannot respond to questions or discussion except for as a statement of fact and clarification.
Hi, my name is Terry Gray. I live in Beverly Hills Subdivision, 11444 Sunset Boulevard, and I've lived there for 35 years. I've spoken at approximately two city council meetings in July of 2022 and August 11, 2022. I spoke about, I hope to raise red flags about what was going on in the Brycewood subdivision, section 5 particularly, trees as well as vegetation. On August 24th, 2023, Mr. Merchant approved the approval of section 5. Mrs. Sung seconded it, and the rest of the council approved. So it passed. Although it didn't follow Chapter 94, Section 1 of your master plan. Did you notice the paragraph about tree preservation that gave the developer the right to mitigate or preserve trees, vegetation? Did you notice that little paragraph in there? I'm wondering if you even know what mitigate means. Mitigate means to make less severe, dictionary definition, to make less severe, harsh, or serious. And in this case, it meant clear cutting, 27 acres for section 5. And yet you still agreed. I hope when you go into closed session tonight, talking about section 6 of Brycewood, that you think about more than the $3 million of incentives that Helotes has given Brycewood, or the 25% tax cut that Helotes has given Brycewood, and that you think about, although they might not talk about the trees and the vegetation, it's there. You might look for that little paragraph that talks about, do they have the right to totally clear the land before they start section 6? Please consider. Hopefully you received this. This was from me to all the council members. And also this that showed the before and after of the obliteration of 27 acres for section 5. Second on my agenda, which brings me to my second point, city council should be elected by jurisdiction, not just at large. I mean, there's a reason why the federal government says we're not going to have any more at-large elections. As of now, many of you live in the same section of town. I think that because if section 5, Brycewood, was developed behind your fence where you live, you would have paid closer attention, listened to what the concerns were, and maybe even change the criteria. Yes, don't say it couldn't be done, because it could have been done. Again, my presentation, just so the notes are correct.
sorry, that's your
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Just as a point of record, we are a general law city. As such, we have to, by the state of Texas laws, operate as at large. Anybody can apply to run. We've had nobody.
You're
from
required
any
to operate
division.
as at large?
Yes, we are. And no,
Hmm.
there are nobody else that has applied to run from any of the other communities. Additionally, just for clarification.
So I guess I need
Can't be
clarification.
two-way.
Okay.
For a point of clarification, the only thing that was approved on August 24th of 2023 was the plat submittal, which was the actual location of where the houses will be.
Mhm.
The development and the clear cutting, the mitigation were all part of a 380 agreement to bring that development into the city of Helotes by annexation in 2015 and 2018, many years ago. That's when the mitigation plans, the tree plans, and the development was done. If it was not accepted at that point, those houses still would have been there. They just would not have been in the city of Helotes. But that is a point. If there's anybody that would like to further discuss that, I'm happy to meet with anybody to further discuss the actualities of the rules and applications of that. But that deal was made almost 10 years ago. And all this council did last year was approve the actual final plat, which was a requirement, because even if we didn't approve it, it's automatically approved within 30 days.
Although I have the final plat and there's a paragraph on it.
Plats are
How
required.
interesting.
If you don't approve it, it's automatically approved by default. So there was really, there's no choice based upon what was done 2015 and 2018. So there was nothing that this council could do on
Do
that.
the rules of this presentation apply to the mayor also?
I'm simply stating a statement of fact, which is all I'm allowed to by state law. I can't engage in question and answer on this. Thank you. Next up, we have Gene Sprague. Very happy to have this gentleman here. He's part of District 6, correct? And been
Which includes Helotes, very fortunately.
and key in the development of Northwest Vista College. And thank you very much, sir, for attending and for all your work. Please.
Well, my purpose tonight was just to reintroduce myself to the council and mayor of Helotes. Many of you fairly new, and you know, the Alamo College has always worked well with Helotes. Many students from Helotes attend Northwest Vista and our other colleges. We have five colleges, you know, Palo Alto College and St. Philip's College and Northeast Lakeview at that point. And we're having some new centers built, one being out on the Kendall County line, that particularly rich in workforce and IT things. But I've been on the board for 30 years now. I'm completing 30 years. During that time, I've seen Alamo colleges go from a very low point shortly about 6 years after I got on there, where we actually had 5 members indicted and one served a long prison term, to rise to a point where we are now documented the #1 community college system in the United States, and internationally respected from the same point. I have chosen to run for re-election this time. I've served a long time. It would have been nice to maybe take a rest, but I feel strongly that we really need to keep the momentum going with the board and with our community college system. We have people that don't share that same viewpoint with me, and I want to preserve what we have. We're on the way up. You'd think you're already #1. Why would you need to do any more? There's a whole lot more we need to do. One of the most recent things was our Promise program that's now available to all high school graduates in the whole county. So we serve the county, not the city. So and there's a lot of great things to come. We are rapidly growing as opposed to many other systems throughout the United States, and that's because we're doing a great job. We're #1 in student success. So thank you for the opportunity. It's great to live in Helotes for 19 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Also, appreciate in attendance, former council member Matt McCrossin. Sir? Name and address?
Mayor, council, staff members, my name is Matthew McCrossin. My address is 9330 Llano Verde. I live in Cedar Springs. I'm a local entrepreneur, and as from experience, I wrote notes down because you know I can talk forever. So hopefully this is well under 3 minutes. I'm just here to throw my support in with the EDC's Visitor Center and Business Center project. Been watching the videos, and I've actually been in contact with Glenn for some time. I am one of the potential tenants. I think I've shared my business plans with some of you along the way the last few years. I'm looking to grow when the time is right and the budget's right. And within the next 18 months, I think we're gonna get to a point where I can bring my both projects up to a par, but I'm looking for office space to expand. I see this as an opportunity, #1, from a business perspective. In my opinion, it fills a critical office space need within our city limits here. I've been looking since about 2019. Ideally, I was gonna, office and lease somewhere, before the pandemic just changed everything. And here we are a few years later. One of the key items that I saw in tonight's agenda packet is that the small businesses, the tenants there, will have access to centralized access and opportunity to interact with various government, nonprofit, and educational organizations. To me, I see that as a potential tangible and non-tangible benefit, certainly mutually beneficial for all the entities that participate within that space. And ideally, if it's an incubator-like operation there, that will see some kind of tax, revenue increase from the growth of those businesses. And lastly, I'm take this in a positive way. The business, my plans are, please take it in a positive way. My businesses are where we've dealt with inflation, every challenge that's been thrown at us, and we're ready to grow. And the next stage is studio space for audio video, as I've discussed with some of you, and actual just office space. So that way I can convert some of the contractors to a W-2 staff. As I've looked outside my gate, as I've looked within the city limits with my budget, where my risk tolerance is, and I don't want to disclose any specific numbers, and out of respect to some of the facilities that I've been in contact with, I think the EDC's plan is reasonable and well within my risk tolerance for at least a 12-month lease. Some of the other places I'm not, even willing to go visit the property with. So I think there's just many benefits to the small businesses here. We have a lot of small businesses in our town that are looking for an opportunity to expand. And I think I've covered all my points. How much time do I have left? All right.
All right, Tammy Pointon.
Good evening. How are y'all?
Good.
I'm Tammy Poynton. I own Helotes Country Club at 14687 Old Bandera Road. I talk fast, so I get everything in my 3 minutes. I did receive this in the mail. It says for a missed court date. I don't know anything about a court date. I've never been issued a court date, never got anything. So I don't know what this is about, but it says about an RV. I called, it says for 14687 Old Bandera Road. That's Helotes Country Club, Helotes Beer Garden. There's no RV on that property. So I've gotten like 3 of these different times. So I don't know what this is. It's a pre-warrant. So I've had my business for 46 years. The little nitpicking here and there that we're getting, it's getting ridiculous. I have other people going on about an RV. If you go back down a private easement to private property, that's down a private easement that we've been paying taxes for 46 years. There's an RV on that property, not this one that's listed on here. But if it's my property and I've been paying taxes for 46 years, down a private easement that nobody should be down, that has no reason to be on a private easement, what does it matter? And I can list a ton of RVs that are on private property. Nobody can see, you can't see these from the road. They have to be researched and found. So with our taxes the way they are, getting nitpicked for this, I just find it ridiculous. And I think everybody should realize this, that it's causing an issue to a lot of people. And Nextdoor, the app, if you read it, there's a lot of people furious about this issue. Helotes is making me really sad with the way they're nitpicking kids. My kids originally wanted to live in Helotes. My son lives in that little house next to the bar. He's debating whether he wants to live in it because Helotes is not being a fun small town anymore. They're nitpicking. My daughter doesn't even want to build in Helotes at this point, and I'm trying to convince her, please stay in Helotes. You're driving the old people out with the nitpicking and the stuff that's ridiculous. Put yourself, it's not an HOA. You're making this worse than living with a bad HOA to be in Helotes. I hope more people speak up. The warrant roundup, I understand how y'all are trying to get warrant. That looks tacky. Posted on social media, warrant roundup with a discount. It looks really tacky, and it's kind of embarrassing for our, to be out there on Facebook. Just personally, and what I hear from my customers, it just seems money, 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 money. But this thing, I'm not going to do anything about it because I don't know anything about it. I don't know about a court date. I don't have an RV on this property. So I just wanted to let it know, please quit taking Old Town Helotes and Helotes. Let it be a nice small town and don't turn into a bad HOA community. I mean, I've been here forever and we're really getting discouraged, really discouraged. A lot of the Old Town people. So I'm just begging y'all, please think of us as Old Town. Let's have the small town community and make it fun, not to where we're worrying about getting this in the mail.
Thank you. As always, I encourage you to come in. If there's something you're unclear about, please come into city council and they will rectify. If it was a wrong address put in, you're clearly aware of the RV, but if it's a wrong address, they can address that. We have ordinances in our city for years, for decades. We still have people that seem to not understand that they're there, but it's our responsibility.
I've had this, and the property has been ours since '78, before Helotes even incorporated.
I understand. I'm not talking about your specific thing, but you know, like speeding laws, you know, we can't just not give speeding tickets, and we can't just not abide by any rules in one district versus another district. We have a responsibility to maintain the rules that have been on the books for literally 40 years. Anyways, thank you very much. But if you have questions, please come in and say, we'll talk about every specific issue that you have in detail. And finally, James Peterson.
I am James Peterson. I live at 13407 Pecan Stable. Many thanks to Mr. Gallardo for walking me through this process. The city of Helotes, Texas cited me with encroachment of the city right of way. I was told that a member of the HOA and the city council complained about my attempt to replace an existing retaining rock wall located in the front of my property facing the street. Within days of that complaint, my home was visited by individuals from the Helotes Code Enforcement and the Iron Horse HOA, including a person taking a picture of my property from his vehicle. The city dispatched an engineer to my premise. The engineer alluded that the complaint seemed trivial and minor, citing that the entire neighborhood showed signs of encroachment. I felt harassed, disparaged, and discriminated against. The retaining wall I was replacing is necessary due to an approximately 3-foot drop off, which extends for approximately 30 feet of my in length. My home is one of a few homes in the neighborhood that is landscaped with such a drop off. The drop off area consists of mostly dirt, sandy soil, and protruding sharp edge limestone rock, which will erode without a containment wall. The rock retaining wall was placed as part of the original landscape during the construction of the home in 2014 by the developer and the builder Toll Brothers. My wife and I are the original owners. We deemed it necessary to replace the wall, which consists of large, heavy, deteriorating stacked rock and boulders weighing upwards to 200 pounds or more. The fallen rocks and the nesting of wildlife posed a liability issue and safety hazard. USAA confirmed that we are liable for injuries due to fallen rocks and could risk losing homeowners insurance. Landscape options were limited given the location of the retaining wall. I looked throughout the community for a viable solution, and there is no standard. My conclusion, my wife and I researched the archives of the city council meeting records from 2020 to present and could not find one instance where a homeowner had to submit an encroachment license agreement. Only businesses. However, there appear to be obvious signs of encroachment throughout the entire community. My question to you, when the rock wall was falling and crumbling, the rocks were falling, where was the concerned resident that was taking pictures then? Where was the HOA? Where was the city? I see where someone took pictures of workers repairing the wall. So where are the pictures when the old wall was falling and needing fixing? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. End of citizens to be heard. At this point, we're looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items number 5 through 7.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 5 through 7.
Motion by Merchant, second by
Second.
Sones. With no discussion needed, all in favor of approving consent agenda items number 5 through 7 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we'll have the mayor's report. Got a couple of updates. First of all, get ready for the 57th annual Helotes Carnival Parade. A Cornstellation space invasion
Constellation.
is what we've come up with. Registration closes Friday, April 5th. And the parade is going to be on Saturday, May 4th. I am excited to find out what kind of costumes and decorations we will have on this Cornstellation Space Invasion event. But once again, one of the greatest events we have in the city, the Carnival, again, out at the fairgrounds for multiple days, rodeo, concerts, and of course, our annual parade. Look forward to bringing out your families and meeting everybody. As we have been stating multiple times here on video, in newspaper articles, and social medias on 8 platforms or 7 platforms and counting, we have a new garbage collection service. It is Frontier. Mostly everything will be exactly the same. Your billing will be the same. You don't need to create a new account. Some people are confused because there was a notice that went out that was really kind of generic if you want additional services or if you weren't in Helotes, but your account's going to transfer seamlessly. Collection has already started. Everybody has the same dates with the exception of a few neighborhoods, and they have been door hangers placed on every single property or personal conversations with the homeowner for notifying when those dates would be. Brush collection and bulk collection happen on every even month. So coming up here in April, and then June, August, October, December, February. So I want to just go ahead and say, I started off by saying, let's make this easy. Everybody in the city put it out on the 1st, and then they'll come through and pick it up as fast as they can. Turns out, and that's what we put out. I take full responsibility for that. We had some citizen input and talked with staff as well as the Frontier, and we decided it would actually be better for the city if we went on a 4-week pickup. That way, if you're in the zone 1, 2, 3, 4, corresponding with week 1, 2, 3, or 4, and that's defined as the first full week with a Monday. So the first full week with Monday in it, that's when your stuff would be out on the curb by 7 o'clock of that Monday. But if you're in zone 4 and you're not going to get picked up till week 4, you don't have to have your bulk and brush out until that Monday morning of the 4th week. So this will help reduce the amount of brush that's on our streets and certainly solve some problems. There is the household waste fee, just like it was before, $1.20 a month. That is so that we can have a couple of events per year. We'll be advertising those when they'll happen. They'll happen here in our parking lot. If you have paints and thinners and oils and other stuff that you can't and not supposed to be thrown in your garbage, this is the time of the year to get rid of it. Also, the bill this time is for 4 months. Please don't get freaked out that your bill is larger than what it should be. It's because your last bill was only for 2 months because Republic was only covering January and February. This quarterly bill will actually be 4 months for March, April, May, and June, and then your next bill will be for 3 months. So it is abnormally high. It's a third higher than what it would be normally because of the transition period actually covering 4 months. And at that point, I think that's all the information here for the mayor's update. So we'll move on to individual items. Looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item 9 as written.
I'll make a motion. We discuss, take action on item number 9.
Motion by Merchant, second by Cato. This is simply the appointment of Mr. Brian McKee. He's here if you don't mind standing. He is my recommendation for approval to the Board of Adjustment under the place 5 with a term expiring in May of 2025. I certainly appreciate his willingness to serve in that capacity. If anybody has any questions.
No, I just want to say thank you for stepping up and filling these shoes. Appreciate your service. I think you'll be a good candidate for this.
I will make a note. It was in the consent agenda, but for those that didn't read it, Mr. Donnie Jones resigned in that position. He had served for 20 years. 20 years he served on that. They don't meet often, but they're very important. They are basically the appeals court to the city council, if you will. So it's a very important spot, but thank you. Without any further questions, all in favor of approving Mr. Brian McKee to place 5 on Board of Adjustment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 10 as written.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we take action, discussion and action on item number 10 is written.
Motion by Merchant, second by Cato. Okay, and I'd like to welcome our auditor for, yes, our first ACFR.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm happy to be here this evening to go over. I'm going to try something new for the sake of time. I have provided to you a one-page summary. I'm happy to go over any additional details within the audit, as I love to talk numbers all night. But just to kind of keep from having to flip through so many pages, this is just something I'm trying out. So if you'll notice down this one-page summary at the very top, I've got a couple of points of just yes or no's. Did we issue a clean opinion? Yes, we did. And that's referred to as an unmodified opinion. We did still make some adjusting entries. That's very typical and nothing that we felt like was of any concern to your internal controls. Did we have any material or significant findings? No, we did not. However, did we have any other written findings or recommendations for the city? We did have a couple. They've been discussed with staff as well as they've been provided to you in your letter that's attached to your audit report. I won't go into any further detail about those unless you would prefer me to clarify anything, but they have been addressed and discussed and provided to you this evening. I did want to mention, of course, that your 2022, for your fiscal year ending 9/30/22, that annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR, was submitted to the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, and received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I know that staff is intending to submit the fiscal year ended 9/30/23 as well, and have no reason to believe you won't receive that award again.
So
Going down now just through a few of the highlights in the general fund. So this is that next section down that one-page summary. You can see that I've got 3 years presented there for just sort of comparison. And then the fourth column there is your budget. You'll notice that the total revenues within the general fund are up significantly from prior year, as well as exceeded your final estimated budget. The main areas for your revenue increase would be in your sales tax, as well as within your grants, because your ARPA grant is being tracked in a fund separate from the general fund. But in FY23, the general fund did receive a dispatch grant from Bear County. You also had a significant increase and over your budget amount for your interest income and your investment income. Significant changes finally coming around to the city's benefit in that regard. In addition to that, you also had an increase in your property tax from the prior year, as well as in your court fines. So those were the main areas that your revenues increased. Going down under your expenditures, you'll notice that your expenditures did increase from the prior year. However, all departments within the city were under the budget, which is why your total expenditures are also under budget by almost $890,000. And the main areas of increase from the prior year really came from a 5% increase in salaries, as well as positions that were put in the police department and one additional position in the administration department. So that was really the main area for increase in expenditures. After another financing source and use, which was really a transfer out to the capital projects fund of $510,000, you'll note that you had a positive change in fund balance for this fiscal year of $3.2 million. That brings your ending fund balance in the general fund to $8.6 million, or the equivalent down below there in the green of 14.9 months of average operating expenditures. So fantastic place to be for the general fund. Any questions on that part so far? Well, you'll also notice then the next section down below is the Economic Development Corporation. The EDC also has continued to have a steady increase, a very nice increase over the last few years, so that you can see that their fiscal year 23 change in fund balance was just over $600,000. And again, a lot of that is coming from the increase in sales tax, even after the 380 agreement payments that are made to developers. Continuing on down, you'll notice within your ARPA grant fund, and again, that's the American Recovery Plan Act grant. You'll notice that you are starting to spend those funds, and in particular in FY23, your total expenditures actually exceeded $1 million within that grant use. And so therefore, the city was required to do what would have been referred to as a single audit, but there was an exception that was offered to small cities. And so the city did opt to take that option, which was less in cost, but it was still required us to check in compliance with that particular grant. And we found that the city was complying in all areas. Finally, I've just had several of your other funds listed. You'll notice the top 3 in particular, your street maintenance, the debt service fund, as well as the capital projects fund. All 3 have had very nice steady increases from the previous 3 years, as well as all your other funds have continued to remain fairly steady over this period of time. Any questions at all that I can answer? I feel like I hit very big highlights. So
There were, and that's a fantastic job. I know we sat there and went through in detail the other day, and there's about 160 pages there or so
Yes.
of material, but we do have some great revenues, some points that I'd like to, because I know they're going to be of concerns, and I know they're very specific and actually have already under correction. I've been very focused on increasing and socking away funds to make us financially solvent to be able to withstand any challenges, such as one we're experiencing now. Right now, we show 14.9 months worth of general fund, which is just fantastic. It's huge. It's higher. My goal was to get us in 10 months in 5 years. We achieved that in 2 years. Now we're over that. But there is a asterisk on this number that I wanted to explain so that you can confirm. Number one, we didn't, at the point of this audit at September 30th, we hadn't added the 8 police officer positions. So we had started receiving the extra sales tax, but hadn't started paying out those salaries. So in this next year, our expenditures will actually increase, which by definition will already drastically reduce that 14.9
Exactly.
months to cover that. Additionally, we have one or two coming off of ARPA positions. And so those positions will add in. So again, our monthly expenditures are going to increase. And by definition, that means that the money we have to cover it will cover fewer months. So that number is actually already lower as we're going forward, because this was a snapshot as of September 30th. So now that we actually have all those employees on, you'll see a much more stabilized and steady hitting at what our long-term goal would like to be in that 9-month range for a small city being appropriate, but that is adjusted. But that does also give us the ability to be able to continue to look for property tax cuts in the future, et cetera, as well as other programs we may want to take a look at budget time coming up. But that's all the statement I had on that.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I was going to ask about that.
No, it's under control. It's a temporary high. We did close out there, but part of the reason when we took on that ARPA position is we knew that we would have the funds to be able to pay for it later on, and those will come fully accounted for in this fiscal year. So the best long-term stability shot we're going to have would be a year from now, once all these have been accounted for a year.
Okay.
But you're projecting this number to be around 10, this 14.
I project us long-term to stay in that nice, healthy 9 to 10 month range.
Okay.
And then that gives
That
us
sounds right.
freedom to be able to endure any external
Right,
as well as
Like we got coming up.
exactly.
today. So, yeah,
Correct.
good. Thank you. Very good presentation. I appreciate you very much. This is always good to see you in here and mentioning about our awards and stuff.
Yes.
Very
yes.
good. Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Any issues? Nope. Jen? Okay. Daniel's not here. There he is, our new Director of Finance. Sounds like you might be off the hook. You just started and we've been on a 3-year track for that GFOA Excellence Award. We're gonna try to get
No
that,
pressure.
give you a year reprieve, and get you into your, I appreciate all your work as well. All right, so we have to accept these, correct? That's our action. So barring any other comments, all in favor of accepting the annual comprehensive financial report for the city of Helotes for 2023, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we're looking for a motion, a second to discuss, take action on item number 11 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 11 as written.
Motion by Massey, second by
I'll second.
Merchant. Okay, just as a synopsis, we had approved the building of a public works building. We went out for bid twice. Construction costs are high, as many organizations in our city are finding out. What this does is simply adds money. It doesn't say we are accepting a bid of that amount. It just expands what we have available to be able to go out and seek bid to be able to complete that project.
I have some questions. Where did we pick the number 400,000? Where did that come from?
So originally, we did some investigative work. I took a look at what buildings cost. We had some construction costs before. Of course, that was coming from some old data. And then we had our own public works department put together some estimates for bids. And we ended up with a generic $400,000 starting point.
So, well, when it was presented to us, or as a budget, it didn't seem like it was a starting point. It seemed like that's what they were going to request, because that's how much it would cost. So I'm just trying to figure out, and this is the second time we've gotten numbers that were much lower than someone has to come back and ask for more. And it's a significant amount more, 300,000.
It is entirely under purview to not approve it.
No, but I'm just trying to find out, again, where's the,
So you can't, when anything's over 50,000, you can't actually go out for bid or ask for those amount of money. You have to actually do it in a process such as sealed bid. So what we did was staff went out to just figure out what construction costs could be, you know what I mean, and kind of get a preview of what it felt like. And those were the numbers they came back with, assuming that was going to be what the cost was going to be for the full project. When we actually went out for bid for the project, they came back significantly higher. And so that's why we're presenting it back to y'all with the information to make that decision if if you do want to move forward, or if this is not a project at this time.
No, I'm just trying to figure out why we keep getting requests for more money than we're asked for to begin with, and significantly more. I can understand.
Yeah, this was something we did not expect.
Anticipate.
No,
Okay,
not
and
at
I did
all.
notice that one of the when you all got the bid back, which was quite a bit higher,
Mhm.
you all looked back at what you were requesting and kind of, culled it down. So
And it still came back at significantly higher.
what does this storage shed look like? What is it gonna look like? What is this Public Works building gonna look like?
Corey, come on up, generically, and again, one of the problems on the first time it went out for bid is, we set a dimension, which was not a standard dimension, and so therefore custom steel girders and not prefab steel girders, and we ended up getting, crazy high bids. So then we put it out on utilizing this size or thereabouts towards standard, common like in stock type of prefab
Right.
sizings, but still custom poured concrete and then electrical and plumbing work, and then of course site work. But essentially think about concrete slab and steel girders with metal siding and overhead garage doors.
Kind of.
What kind of siding again? Corey, could you?
We're essentially asking for an all steel building on a concrete slab. That's the premise behind it. There's gonna be bay doors. We've reduced the amount of bay doors.
Kind of like the firehouse.
Not as extravagant as that even. It's
Like
not
the bays.
And what
Like
is
the
the bays, yes.
Like the
What
bays.
is the size?
We have a size range. I don't know the exact range without looking at it, but initially we came up with maybe an inaccurate number just because it wasn't a standard dimension. Looking back at it, we came up with a more standard dimension. That's what we included in the
Well, how
second
many
bid.
feet? I mean, how many?
Between 9,000 and 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
Even hard to visualize that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have some kind of it just seems like for a steel building, 700,000, but again, I'm not questioning.
Yes, ma'am. And
I mean, I am questioning.
80 feet by 125
so
feet.
concrete, there's a lot of concrete work as well. We have to move electricity from the pole that's by the playground over here to where the building would be. There's the added cost for all the electricity that would be involved in running overhead doors and things of that nature. Also, to use some of the equipment that we have, we'd have to have electric parameters that have to be met as well inside there. That's really.
There was a lot more involved than initially thought.
No, we've actually reduced it. I'll say that Justin's really good at coming up with accurate numbers, and I'm very confident in his ability to do that. And he's always very spot on. And so I think this is just a reflection of construction costs going up and other
Yeah,
things.
and I know that they
Honestly.
have. I know that they have.
The dimension of the building is 80 by 125.
Okay.
So
Thank you. And that's the area we have to play with there. That doesn't mean the building has to be that large. And I've provided a lot of clarity the second time we put in the bid with some of that, with the dimensions and some of the other things that we were asking for.
So with concrete, site clearing, plumbing, steel girder work, outside building, roofing, and all the doors and exterior windows and power doors, we're at about in the $70, $75 a square foot range for brand new construction.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else while I'm up here?
Yeah, I do. I have questions. Sorry. So when I first came on to this city council 3 years ago, it was a vision that I had with your previous boss to have a building for public works. You guys are working out of a garage shop. And so I really think it's necessary that we do this. My questions now are, so I understand why the bids are so far off now, because that makes sense. You have this great ginormous idea, but so the initial bids, they went out for bids posting in August. Why the 6-month wait? Why are we now seeing this now? I mean, it seems like, did it take that long for the bids to come back?
We
or-
did another set of bid. We did the first set.
In August.
And then we decided, we have to leave it out for 30 days and then evaluate and then decide, okay, is that something that we want to go back out for bid? Is this something
Right,
construction
so you put
wise?
the bids back out in February, which is 6 months later.
Actually, we put the, which is,
That's
Yeah,
what
so
this
it's
says.
February 23rd.
yes,
So that's 6 months later. Why the 6-month wait?
just getting all the specs.
No, I don't know if that's worded exactly right. The second bid posting from when we opened it was on February 23rd. We had to get those and then,
Right, so there's still 6 months.
it had to be out for 30 days and then we had to get the bids. We had to rewrite the bid and then
So we reposted it in January, is where we posted it. The second one was in
That's the open-
January.
That's the opening, that's the opening date. February 23rd was.
Okay.
So if the bid was posted in August, there's the 30-day lapse that she's referring
Right.
to and some other things.
And then you get some information,
Reviewing and all that
over.
kind of stuff. It took, we had to kind of readdress some things. I rewrote what we were asking for. I had to do a little
Okay.
research on that, so.
Along with doing your whole job that you guys do really well. Okay, I understand that now.
Then we got delayed by Christmas.
Yes, okay, so another question here is, so we're gonna ask for 300 more to cover the cost of this, which I get by this, we can cover this. This isn't a huge deal. It is a significant amount of money, don't get me wrong, but my question is, so can we use these February bids? Or do we have to
We have
rebid
to
again?
rebid.
We have to rebid.
So what happens when this comes back and we're still short? Do we have to come back to city council, ask for more money and rebid? Is 300,000 actually a good number?
700,000.
It's 700,000 total.
So
Is that actually a good number?
I feel as though it is.
Right,
So
I mean, because
the first set of bids were.
like I would have thought we
we're
were breaking down.
still
by now.
below that, and then we've reduced some of the things that we're asking for. The one bid that we did get back was right around 600,000. And this time around, I have about 6 contractors I'm gonna reach out to. And so I think that we're gonna get a better selection, a broader
Right.
chance of getting
Idea. of
good
getting a
bids in.
bid.
So
Like, because the whole purpose of this building right here is to like protect our assets, yes?
yes,
And I think this is money well spent. So what I'm saying here is, in your best guess, 700,000 is enough to do this.
I believe so. I'm hopeful. I mean.
With the bids that were,
I don't
with
know.
the bids that
actually, I
were.
really-
Are we
put out-
anticipating an $800,000 bill here?
No, look,
Because this is February and it's now May, by the time we get this information back.
But the first bids were for a custom size.
Yes.
That's why it's gonna come back lower.
Nothing is getting cheaper.
Well, you're talking, yeah, well, that's true too.
So that's my question. That's all.
And we gave a little bit of cushion from what the bid came in.
Yeah,
You know?
I see
Yeah.
that, but I mean, nothing's getting cheaper. Okay. No, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I remember in the budget workshop, having this figure for 400,000 and looking at Craig and thinking that sounds really low. And then I'm convinced I remember I was told, oh, but this isn't gonna include plumbing, and you're thinking of actual, building. So now it has plumbing. Did you find out about a requirement, or what is the need of plumbing?
There's not gonna be any plumbing.
Okay, I don't know how I got.
There'll be
Electricity.
electrical.
He said electric.
Electrical.
Electric.
Okay, so
Wait, why is there no
plumbing.
restroom out there? That seems like a long walk. How do you wash your hands? How do you use the bathroom?
We're still gonna office out of the same building.
Yeah, but if you guys are working out there, they gotta walk all the way to the office to go pee.
or the restroom at the park. We have a new nice restroom at the park.
That's what I'm saying. We can throw some money at this while we have the, while it's here. Now let's get a bathroom in there.
To tie into the sewer would require a whole lot. There's no sewer.
It's way out away.
It's
from the-
way far away.
It's to house equipment. They
Right.
need a
But
bathroom.
they're
in
working
there.
on it.
They'll
They-
have a wash.
They're
They'll
gonna
have
be
a,
fine.
well, no, they won't. They'll have a,
They'll have nothing.
no,
They'll be fine.
For Public Works, I think we'll be okay. And it's really, we have this Public Works building that we're utilizing now that's, I don't know if you've been in there, but I think the idea is to move away from that to a standard that more meets our needs at this point in time.
It's more,
Fully supportive of
it's
this.
more
I'm saying it's-
basically just storage everything. And if they're gonna work on anything, the area that we are storing stuff in will be cleared out to be able to
I
bring
thought we
that
were
equipment.
demolishing that.
No,
Yeah.
not that one. We have a garage
You
that's
can't fit a
attached.
3-ton dump truck in that garage.
We wouldn't be servicing a dump truck.
We-
Or we don't have staff that would be servicing.
it's not services apartment.
Yeah, that would be sent out.
Smaller equipment.
Yeah.
I'm
Service
just
the
trying to think
smaller
ahead here.
equipment.
They're right behind fire. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Are there any plans to put a siren in the new building?
They just-
Did you say a siren?
Yes.
No, it's funny. We were talking about that earlier. We're gonna save that siren, but we're not gonna implement that siren.
Listen, this is needed. When I was out there electioneering over the last 3 election cycles and kind of stretch and walk around, I saw equipment outside and I was surprised because the elements just damaged. So it sounds like you found that happy, sweet spot, so to speak, where Councilmember Merchant, I don't think we should put bathrooms in. I think that's little
Overkill.
over the top, but
I don't know. Everywhere I've ever worked, there's been a restroom.
well, there are restrooms. There are restrooms. That just
They're not
increases
working there.
cost
They're working over
significantly.
here.
Okay,
So,
Working over there.
gotcha.
anyway, thank you for all your hard work and, I think this is, much needed and I'm in support of it. One other quick question. This is just my lack of understanding of how, this works with municipalities. Once you lock in a budget, they can't come back and say, oh, the price of steel has gone up. Now the cost is more, because that's what happens when you build a custom home. That kind of stuff happens. Does the city contract lock them in? So once you have locked in,
Correct.
then it doesn't.
That's correct. They'll be locked to their proposal.
Okay, great.
So to be fair, they're asking for a significant more money, so it is entirely in purview to consider not approving it at all. Early on, if we take a look at it, we're looking at $40 a square foot for brand new construction. Our other remodeling project that we were talking about is more closer to $120 a square foot just for remodeling. So this is the whole building with electrical and new at roughly $65. Actually, I did the math, $60 to $65 a square foot, which is much more in line with and that's for brand new construction, not just remodeling. So any other comments? Okay. Again, this is not the approval of the spending of it, it's the allocation and such that any bid that is received would still have to come for approval to city council. So
Correct.
there's still an opportunity to say no. This is only an allocation of funds. So all in favor of approving item number 11 as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, looking for a motion and second to discuss, take action on item number 12 as written.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I would like to discuss and amend this item.
We would have to open the discussion and action, and then we can take a look at amendments from there otherwise, once it's open.
Okay, then I'll move that we discuss and take action on this resolution.
Okay, motion by
Is
Merchant.
this 12?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second that.
Motion, second by Massey. Okay, sir.
So I am not a resident of Iron Horse, but I have been. I lived there for a good 10 years. I'm very familiar with this neighborhood and Mr. and Mrs. Peterson are absolutely right in their memo here. There are at least 30 homes on Walking Horse that have encroachment issues with their retaining walls. Some of them from 2 feet all the way up to 15 feet. This is silly that we are here. This is silly that this man has to come in here and pay for encroachment license for 10 years and then come back in 10 years and pay for it again. Absolutely silly. Those are my beginning feelings. I can't even, and these are just facts, right? So I've read this encroachment article 19, sorry, chapter 74, article 2, parks, streets, sidewalks, and other public places. There's no sidewalk here. There's no plan to have a sidewalk in front of this man's house. This is you're singling this man out
So,
because he fixed his failing wall.
so I want to interject to staff.
Please.
Okay, when something, well, you're right. We're not singling him out. What happened was it got triggered because he fixed his wall. So if anyone else came in that area and they fixed the retaining wall and they encroached the 2 feet, whatever feet, inches or so forth, it would trigger the encroachment requirement. I don't know what happened 10 years ago. I don't know why they didn't do an encroachment agreement with all these residents to encroach into the public right of way. I can't answer that, Councilman. What I can tell you is for staff, we are here to anything that triggers, because it's a new build, it's a change, it's a remodel, it triggers you to get into compliance.
So 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, about there, we had a huge rainstorm and the retaining wall across from my previous residence fell over. The property owner fixed it. I'm not aware that he had to do this.
I was not here at that time when
Well, how often does this happen? This is, I get it. You have to ding and check the rules.
And then now it's up to
This is-
council at that point to decide if they want to increase it from 10 to 30. The reason we put 10 on there is because that is what is the standard for encroachment agreements. And that has been the standard with encroachment agreements that the city has made. It
So
is
you
up to-
we can't grandfather this property in because that's the way it was built. There's no grandfather ability.
Grandfather ability in.
Can we
You can
do
do a
that?
long-term encroachment. You can do, if you want to increase it to 20 years to 30 years.
No, I
that
want to
is-
make this go away for this gentleman and his family.
How can you?
You have an ordinance that the staff has to imply. Only council can repeal an ordinance. But staff was simply enforcing the ordinance that's in the books. So if council wants to repeal the ordinance, and believe me, you have right of way all over the city that you're not wanting encroachments.
I get it. And I get it. And there's encroachment already all over this neighborhood. Like and we're talking 2-foot walls to 15-foot walls within 10 feet of the street. What happens when these walls break? What happens when they fail? They have to get one of these?
They would have to come to council. Yes. Or bring it back to
So.
their property line.
So, and this is one of the joys of being on council, getting to deal with these difficult questions that don't come up very often. I give you just an analogy. I went to replace many years ago my water heater. I have 2 water heaters, as many people do, only to find out that code had changed. I had 2 water heaters, but now if you want 2 water heaters, you have to have an expansion tank. So instead of $500, you had to have $2,000 done to replace a $500 water heater. It truly is unfortunate. I said, why can't I build it back the way it was? Because there was a change and that is what triggered that. So what we need to take a look at is perhaps take a look at our encroachment and the applicability of it or the repairing of existing. But at this point, for this instance, at this point, until we can look at that, we have to deal with the issues as they come before us because we can't change the ordinance on the spot without putting that
Sure.
as an agenda item. We can, however, at this, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but we can in this item adopt a variance to allow a 30 or even a 50-year encroachment license on this. And can we change the fee or we need to make it a 50-year?
Again, the council, it's an ordinance and only the council can amend it or modify it. So if part of your motion is to reduce the fee in this instance and not amend the ordinance, council has that ability to do so.
That's what I would prefer to do.
I'm hesitant to change ordinances because we're not exactly sure of what other instance might be actually detrimental. But when we take it as a look as a case by case and see where an obvious case of rebuilding a wall and it makes sense and common sense, we can adopt a fee waiver and an extension for 30 years.
Right, so
transferable.
I'll even take it one step further. I like this idea. Okay, but I'll take it another step further. This is another example of code enforcement that we heard about earlier tonight, going way, way further than they need to. This is a simple retaining wall that he is doing a very good job on.
So point of order on this is that staff, and this is one of the problems I deal with on a at least weekly basis, if not almost daily basis, people calling in about the code compliance officer. Their job is to uphold the ordinance as written. They have no choice. It's a little bit like a police officer. Well, yeah, I was going 75 and a 40 and it was a school zone and I was on my phone, but I wasn't hurting anybody. They have no choice. They pulled you over. You broke the law. Our code officer is the same thing.
Bad analogy, because the officer can give you a warning.
Well, okay, so maybe it's,
And then so.
but the point is, but in the case of.
Right, but what happens
In the case
next
of
time?
ordinances, we take a look at it at a case by case, because there may be a situation where somebody rebuilds their wall, but they rebuild their wall in the middle of the sidewalk.
And then,
And now we have a problem where because if we eliminated the ordinance,
Yeah.
then we can't stop them from
I
building
don't
the wall on
want
the
to
sidewalk.
eliminate.
Mr. Merchant,
Yes, sir.
just if you look at the agenda, it was brought to our attention not by code compliance, but by the homeowners association.
Right, which is also mind blowing.
So I just
So
wanna make you
while you're
aware
at
of
the
that.
podium, can you answer these questions and Mr. Peterson's conclusion here? Number one, are other homes out of compliance in the neighborhood as
I
well?
think we've all answered that already.
Okay, that is a yes.
Yes.
Yep, correct.
Will homes that are not in compliance be required to submit an encroachment application letter?
So basically what Marion said, if it triggers, somebody else is doing maintenance on theirs and it triggers it, then absolutely.
Okay. Was the Iron Horse Community Phase 3 given special provision regarding certain rules pertaining to setbacks?
So the setbacks has no issues in this. For example, this is more right of way. So setbacks are different from right of way. So on that street, we have a 50-foot right of way. Okay, so that's what this agenda is all about, protecting the right of way.
Okay.
It's not singling anybody out or the retaining wall or whatever. So if you take 30 feet from the street, that's 30 feet. So that gives you 10 on one side and 10 on the other to meet the 50-foot right of way, correct? Okay, so having said that, the developer, I'm assuming, put up that retaining wall and it was already encroaching. So what triggered it is that Mr. Peterson decided to modify it and obviously make it better due to the fact that it was a liability
So
for his insurance.
Because our inspector at some point, right around 2014, missed this, he's paying for it now?
It could be, or an oversight by the developer. I mean,
Well, clearly, I
2014.
mean, it's an oversight throughout that whole
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yep.
The point is, when you come down to it, where you live right now, you cannot build a storage shed on your neighbor's property.
Well, of course not.
Neither can you build a storage shed in the middle of the street. It's not your property.
Of course not.
And when the wall fell down, it's unfortunate, it already had been grandfathered in, but when it repairs, what the ordinance reads is that either he has to move it back off the right of way or he has to apply for an encroachment ordinance. What we're discussing right now is if we remove the ordinance, then people could build in the street.
Well, no, I'm not
Because as
discussing. the
ridiculous as it
removal
sounds,
of
that's
that.
what could
That's
happen.
not what
because-
I'm saying here.
I understand. So we have to look at this
Let's
as a
do
case
the
by
very
case.
best thing that we can do for this man, because this is a 3-foot wall that he is doing a very good job on. That is very necessary to his property.
I am not in disagreement, and I fully support that as well. Of course, I don't get to vote unless you guys tie. But the point is that we're looking at this, and just to keep it on track, we are forced to really look at this as a case by case as it comes up.
Okay.
So if another person's wall falls down and they want to build it up in the exact same spot, and the original developer had been accepted, we would have reason to treat it in a similar manner without risking somebody building it further out and further out. And because of.
And
of the
Can I,
elimination
can
of
can
ordinance.
I, can I talk now?
Please, please, I'm
I was
sorry.
the one who gave the
Anybody can do
second.
that.
No, I agree that we need to fix this for this gentleman. I look, he fixed it. The fence was crumbling, it was falling. He fixed it. It was already there. As we know, the developer put it in. We annexed Iron Horse into the city and it was already there. So this, like you said, it triggered this, what happened, triggered this encroachment license. I agree that 10 years is just ridiculous, that we need to definitely extend that. I do not agree that we need to change the ordinance, because I just recently had an issue. Well, in my neighborhood, somebody put a wooden fence right on where the street, not even, there was in the east, the right of way, the city, the street, there's 10 feet. They put their fence right where the street is. And the first thing I noticed was, if a car just happened to be going maybe sometimes you're driving, maybe a teenager, and they kind of swerve, they could hit that fence. It was a very odd fence. It wasn't like this kind of fence. It was like this, made out of big cedar. That person's car would be totaled, and maybe the kid would be killed. So it protects this easement, this right of way protects the homeowner, because the homeowner having it in the easement in the city right of way is the one that's gonna be charged for hurting somebody, because they're out of compliance. They're in the city right of way. In this case, there's plenty of room there. The fence it was already there. There's plenty of room there. It looks nice. And I just think we should do what we can to, again, not change the ordinance. We need the ordinance. But Frank told us that we can, as city council, tweak this, what we want to do. And so I would do the term for much longer than 10 years. I'm not sure. Someone said 50. I'm not sure. Does that seem like?
Mr. Peterson looks like a young man to me. I think 50 years is appropriate.
There was a fee involved with this? Well,
There was a fee.
How much was did he already pay the fee?
$187.10.
I'm sorry, what was it?
The fee was $187.10.
Okay. Well, I think that might be is it a possibility that we can refund the fee?
It's up to.
If council makes it part of their motion.
Yep.
Yes, okay. Would anybody be offended if I made a motion?
First of all, the way that it's written, y'all would have to deny it. And
Okay.
then somebody would make a new motion.
May I ask just a quick question? Frank, what's the longest that we could make it? They're throwing out 50 years. Do you know the longest? That by law?
Actually, there's no state law. There's case law that basically says really anything over 50 years, it's more of a transfer and not a license to utilize. So I would recommend below 50 years.
At 30.
Can I ask Mr. Peterson a question?
Mayor?
Sure. Sir, can you come up to the podium? So this is going to help us kind of decide how many years we can do this for. Your engineering company, how long do you think that, by conversations with your contractor, how long is that retaining wall good for, in your best Yes.
Well, that one is good for
I mean, they
many
put
years.
footings in there.
I would say decades. Yeah, this one is built right. The other one was crap.
Okay,
He did apply for a 30-year.
okay.
His application did indicate 30
I
years.
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
So
Thank you, sir.
as this is written, you're requesting approval of a 30-year encroachment is what your item is for, correct, Mr. Peterson?
I'm sorry.
Your item here is requesting a 30-year
Yes,
is
sir.
what your application requesting. So if we grant you the 30-year, this is good with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
So it sounds like our resident is
Happier?
30-year.
It would not take a rejection of the motion that's here. It's just amending it from 10 to 30 years and then whatever else you want to do with the fee.
We're not taking different. Good. Any comments specific?
I'm not in a position to weigh in on this. I'll have to abstain.
Okay. Okay. John?
Oh, I feel for the homeowner because our weather over the last couple of years has been very hard on these retaining walls with the freezing. And I think we're going to see more of this in Iron Horse Canyon specifically. So I know it's painful and expensive. So whatever we can do to make this easier for you. And I'm sorry for the hassle. That's the wheels of government though. And I hope this explanation tonight has explained the why. It's painful sometimes to go through this, but there is a reason for it. And I just appreciate your patience in coming out tonight. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing.
All right. We can take a look at ordinance adjustment later on, but for this issue, do you want to entertain
I'd like to
friendly amendment?
make a friendly amendment to that motion, and I'd like to adjust this resolution for this
Agreement term.
and encroachment license for Mr. Peterson to 30 years and reduce his fee to $1 a year to $30.
You mean refund his application?
Refund his application fee minus $30.
There is no yearly fee.
I'm just saying $30.
Just refund it.
Just
Okay,
refund.
I'm fine with that. So let's refund the whole fee.
Clear.
Easy day.
The friendly amendment to the friendly amendment, internal. Anybody thinking of Inception, dream within a dream within a dream? Frank, I know you're getting chuckle out of that one. All right, so we have a friendly amendment to extend the term of agreement for encroachment to 30 years with a full refund of the fee that had been paid. Do you accept that as a?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so
I'll second
a
that.
friendly one has been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Sorry for the hassle. Process is a process, but thank you for following the process.
Thank you.
This time, would like a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 13 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 13 is written.
Motion by Massey, second by
Second.
Stones. Okay, this is a simple acceptance of the nomination of Austin Lane to fill the vacancy of place 2 on the EDC board.
Is Mr. Lane here?
He is not. No.
Oh,
He had a prior engagement.
Prior engagement. I do know the gentleman. I have spoken with him. He is a outstanding individual and currently serves as the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Frank, quick question about this is a matter, because we did pass rules change that said you couldn't serve on both boards. Would he, if appointed and we accept his nomination, would he have to immediately resign from a Chamber of Commerce, or can he finish out that term, or is there a period of time?
The way it's written, he would have to resign.
immediately.
Okay,
Your bylaws say that?
for the Chamber of Commerce. That's the city's requirement that they cannot serve on both.
Yeah.
Because of conflict of interest.
It's not the bylaws, it's the city.
Does Austin know that?
I talked with him about that. He does know that specifically. He wasn't sure. He felt he had heard that the EDC said that he could serve out the rest of his term. I said I wasn't sure.
Aware of a conflict between city council and the EDC board.
No, what we had, in fact, Mr. Lutzer was on both boards at one time, as was Melody, and they had to choose one or the other when we changed the city rule due to EDC approving funds for Chamber of Commerce items. You couldn't be on both executive boards.
No, he served his full term as the chamber director, so did Melody. They just abstained from any discussion that related to chamber business in front of the EDC. Yeah.
Okay, well, that
When does this term end?
September.
Whatever happened. That's relevant.
No, it's December 2024.
That's too long. He shouldn't be on I mean, there's a conflict of interest. He shouldn't be.
Well, the EDC does have to comply with the Chapter 171 and their ethics policies, which does require them to recuse if they're on any matter that would be financially benefiting any other entity they serve on. So they would have to be required to recuse themselves if they were to be on both boards. I thought there was that prohibition, but if the practice has been to allow them to finish their term, again, that's a decision of the council as to whether that they're going to make that as a condition for the appointment or not.
Well, I made the motion, and my condition is that he resigns from the chamber immediately.
And the person who seconded that agree.
I seconded it. I would have to agree as well. I agree.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I don't know if Mr. Austin Lane will have a problem with that or not. But I guess it's conditional, so he'll get to make a decision.
Councilmember Massey, could you explain your concerns? You have a lot of years of experience on the council, why you're the conflict of interest. I have my own hunch, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Well, yes, the chamber is, well, it's made up of a lot of the different businesses out here. And the executive director is supposed to be, what is the word? Not altruistic, impartial to the things that, you know, to help businesses out, I guess to say. They need to be impartial, and he's, you know, so if you're on the chamber and there's, how many people are on the chamber? How many businesses? Over 100, 150, 150 to 200. You know, and it's good that he has that knowledge of all these businesses, but then to be the president, it was bad enough to, in my opinion, when we had our director of the EDC on the board. He's no longer on the board, but there's decisions that are made in conjunction with, well, let's get the EDC to, it becomes almost an incestuous relationship. I just don't think it's a very good thing to be the president of the chamber and the director of the EDC.
I certainly can understand that, and I actually tend to agree with that, particularly when we think the EDC board stands to be landlord for the Chamber of Commerce as a tenant. There is a clear conflict of interest there. Already the chamber is a tenant, but I also understand the nature of the Chamber of Commerce as being businesses coming together to help each other. And we do have the, of course, 171 rule that requires recusing himself from any type of decision. Would you be friendly to amending your amendment to allow 60 days to allow the chamber to be able to find somebody to replace him, that he can serve out 60 days in that transition period? Or if we accept his nomination and give the chamber some time to.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I know it is hard to find a good president, so.
I hate to stick them in a jam where they have to find somebody by tomorrow. But giving them 2 months that allow, and then of course you have to follow by rules of recusing himself by any conflict of interest items. But if you're willing to do that, would you be willing to accept that as a?
Yes.
as a case?
Yes.
So amended motion made and second accepted. Do we have any other concerns? Okay, sir.
No, sir.
All right, with no further discussion, all in favor of accepting the nomination of Austin Lane to fill vacancy place 2 on the City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors, contingent upon resigning within 60-day period to his position of President Chamber. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Carries.
Mayor, point of clarification, is that resigning as president of the chamber and he can stay on the chamber, or resigning from the chamber?
As president, you can still be a member.
Okay.
You just can't be on the executive
Board. He can be
board.
president.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's
Be on there to serve.
Any board position or just president?
just,
Any board position, I would.
Is that an understanding of the council?
My understanding, we had a rule here that was changed in 2021 that disallowed being on the executive board on both boards, and that was a city rule that was adopted. We had several people. Apparently, we might have somebody that's filling both shoes at this point. We'll have to visit that.
so he would have to resign as a board member of the chamber.
Of the chamber.
He can still be a member
Be a
of
member
the chamber.
There are many people that are members.
Just-
We're a member of the chamber.
Right.
We're
I just
not-
want to clarify for the record.
Yes.
We're all under that understanding. My conversations with Mr. Lane, he's he was in his final year. It's a limited term anyways, and so don't think there's going to be a lot of collateral damage there. They'll just expedite when they appoint for the chamber. Okay, that passed. So now at this point, we're looking for a motion, a second, to discuss and take action on item number 14 is written.
I'll make a motion to discuss and take action on the item 14 is written.
Motion by our heavy hitter, Mr. Merchant. Thank you.
Let's go.
Seconded by,
Second.
second by Sones. Yes, sir.
I don't have any issues with this. This is not a problem. This is why we have the EDC.
Councilmember?
I don't have anything. Do they know that there's another store right down the street that also sells big bottles of water?
Yes.
They know that. Like, they did their homework.
Okay.
Okay. No, I don't have any.
Which is neither here nor there as far as the grant is concerned, but hopefully they got good advice from their economic development coordinator, executive
Well, kind of
director.
really is, because we want them to have success. If we're investing in them, we want.
Competition can be healthy too,
That's
but they
true.
do a slightly, some overlap in product service, but some differences as well.
I think you elaborate the purpose of this.
Purpose of the grant.
Yes.
So a lot of it is to help,
That's a justification.
yeah, offset some of the cost of either building expansion, or in this case, a new business coming into Helotes. Our rental rates right now are among the highest in San Antonio, well, in Bexar County. And a lot of the landlords do not offer, my opinion, significant tenant improvements. So when a new tenant comes in, there's a lot of that they're responsible for. There was some common misconception that HVAC units are covered by the landlord. Typically, that is not the case. Those are, expenses of a tenant. But they have to make the space fit their needs. Plumbing, electrical, typically requires a lot of saw cutting slabs. It's an expensive endeavor. And this program has been really utilized among small businesses.
Any other comments?
Oh, no, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I was talking every time I was looking at this.
Well, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 14 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 15 as written.
Okay, I'll do it again. Let's make a motion to discuss and take action on item 15 is written.
Motion by Merchant, second by second by Cato. This is a very similar, but just different shop.
Yep, again, same shop, same program, same good deal. Let's do it. I have no questions on this.
Sir?
I have no issues with it.
It's interesting that this barbecue place is moving out of
Yes.
their location to a new location, which is what, and to Mr. Cato's point here and what you just explained, this is why this is a good program for our small businesses here. That is expensive.
And as you can tell in their proposed budget, which I think that is a very conservative budget. I have
I do
every
too.
intention that's going to be more expensive. It's well over $130,000.
Yes.
And their improvements to that space, they're really looking to add a bathroom. They have to put in an HVAC unit and they're putting up a partition wall. So they're keeping it pretty open on the inside.
They have bathrooms where they work. Done.
Oh, they did it for 117,000 too.
Good.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving item number 15 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. At this point, looking for a motion, a second to discuss and take action on item number 16 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 16 is written.
Motion by Massey, second by Cato. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we did have an executive meeting, I guess you could say, with the mayor and I, and there was no quorum, Mr. Sanders, and three members of the EDC, and we discussed a lot of this. And so I think we kind of went through and discussed some issues that we had. A lot of it was on the mayor's side, especially monetary. So this meeting did help, and I think we worked on the money situation pretty much. There's some things that I wanted to bring up that were brought up in this meeting. One of them was initially what a business incubator is. What is a business incubator? And I didn't even realize this, but it is now actually in the dictionary. And it says it's a place, especially with support staff and equipment, made available at low rent to small businesses. And I thought, well, there you go. That's, so that's what a business incubator. But the other thing too, an incubator is for preemies, small, children, and after a little while, they can get out of the incubator and move on. And that's the important thing that we need to remember about this business model that we want to do, this Helotes Visitor and Business Center. I think when it was brought to us again in the summertime, I thought it was a good idea. We were asked for 250,000, and then we come back was it a couple of months ago for more money. And we decided, no, we weren't going to go there at this time. We did allow for a security system, which I didn't vote for because I thought it was overkill. And we did vote for an internet expenditure, which I now think was way too much. I have been looking into the internet. $1,000 a month to put fiber optic cable is really overkill for a small building like that. I just started looking. Verizon has nice business models for $70 a month to $100 a month, maybe at the most 200, depending on what you want. They put a module in there and they can hook into that. But for $1,000 a month for this fiber optic into a building that the EDC does not own, it just seems unnecessary. And so I understand that it was actually going to be less than $1,000, maybe $500 or $600 a month, but still that's quite a bit of money. So I'm very concerned about that. And I think that if I am to approve what the extra costs that y'all are asking for, the windows, the extra, obviously, electricity and that kind of thing, that I think that it would be a good idea for the EDC to rescind the previous approved internet expenditure that we did approve and go with something less expensive. And then look into this. Let's see how this, again, this building that we're leasing that we do not own, let's see how it works out in a year or two. If we need to put fiber optic in there, if we decide that that's really, if y'all decide that's what you really need, it could be looked at again. But for right now, why don't we do something to save a little bit more money? It would save, the projection was 12 years, 10 years that you all to pay this thing off. Well, it would be a lot less years, 120,000 in 10 years we would be saving just on the internet. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. Well, two other things. You mentioned that in your little report here that you were going to be working with UTSA Small Business Development Center and the Chamber for Mentorship and Guidance. And I was wondering, do you already have signed agreements with them, and exactly what will they be doing?
Yeah, we currently have partnerships with both organizations. They're not signed agreements. So the UTSA SBDC operates out of their downtown UTSA location. Periodically, they will have advisors come out to meet with businesses that request their services. Most of the services are provided free of charge. They do business planning, business financial forecasting. They do analysis, competitor analysis. A little bit overlaps on some of that components I can provide as well. But they even have educational opportunities. So whether it's HR training, they offer more than a dozen different categories. They even teach businesses how to operate QuickBooks if they're not familiar with it. But having a facility like this allows them the opportunity to have an advisor come out here on site to help with the business, and not for that business owner to go downtown.
Okay, because that's a big component of an incubator business, and that's what I wanted. My last thing, the lease agreements. You said they were going to be for a year, correct?
Up to a year. So we'll have
to a year.
Typically 1 month, 6 month, and a year.
Okay, good. And one of the things we discussed, and I think this is very important, considering especially that this is a business incubator, is that there has to be some verbiage in the lease agreements regarding wait lists for new small businesses that want to go in there. We can't have one business stay in there for years and years, especially if there's a wait list. And I don't know who looks at I guess the attorneys look at your contracts, lease contracts, but that to me is a very significant thing. We just can't have someone in a low rent, because remember, the concept of an incubator business model is they start out with their idea and then they move out. They move to a bigger place. They start doing good business, they start making money, and they're going to move. They need to understand that, and they need to, so then we have to be able to help a lot of small businesses start up and get out. And so that needs to be in the lease agreement. And I just can't stress that enough, that they can't just stay there because it's low rent forever, so that's a big sticking point for me. The other thing again too is I think the internet. I mean, I thought the security system was overkill, but I also think the internet too, and I would like to see that rescinded.
I believe Glenn has previously provided the appropriate business justification for this money, and no discussion is necessary.
Okay. I do want to take this time to just cover a couple of things. One, we did meet together, an executive meeting. We discussed the more conservative revenue estimates. I feel that EDC came to the table with a much better set of estimates and a much more realistic view of expenses, and we came to terms with grappling with the concept of cost of capital And you submitted some supporting documentation. I believe you're still a little bit optimistic in those estimates by my measure, but I still feel that it is much more reasonable, and that in this form, at this point, we're just kind of arguing a little bit of semantics, and I am fully prepared to support moving forward based upon your numbers. Although, while you're saying with the cost of capital, putting in about a 12-year payback, I feel probably a bit more by 15, but between 12 and 15.
That would have been in my presentation today.
Yeah.
It's 10 to 15.
Yeah, and so I feel that conversation that we had in that meeting was a much better and more appropriate, and I feel very comfortable with that. That being said,
Mr. Mayor, can Glenn do his presentation?
oh,
I don't know if there's a need to, but if, whatever you guys want.
I think so, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if there's, I apologize. Didn't know.
Oh, I think you're good, but
I guess we reviewed the documentation so well, I almost felt like we had the full presentation.
Yeah.
If there's something you want to highlight.
No, Miss Massey actually highlighted some of the points I was going to bring up today to really go back in essence to the beginning of why we chose to present this concept, both with the visitor center and the benefits it can provide to the community, as well as the business incubator side. And I did kind of put up a quote of an incubator. I like yours a lot better. But I want to kind of briefly go back, just, strategic initiative for the EDC. This hit, 4 out of our 5 goals that we've set up in our strategic plan, provides an opportunity. We constantly assess trends and opportunities, identify opportunity needs in the community. We feel that this kind of checks those boxes. It helps with the economic growth because, again, we're investing in our small businesses. We're hoping this is the stepping stone for them for future development. We will continue to have our partnerships with the Chamber and the SBDC, again, offering additional educational opportunities. We're also going to plan on hosting workshops here in the conference center. And then one of our big goals was developing a visitor center period, which, we're planning to partner with Historical Society to provide, I don't know about interactive, but because that could be taken different ways, but to at least have some information and some displays of the rich history here in Helotes that both, residents and visitors can appreciate. So where are we on this slide?
If I need to go ahead, just let me know, jump ahead.
So again, some of the benefits on boosting local economy. So the center, visitor center in general, is usually the first stop if you're not familiar with an area. We currently do get walk-in traffic every day, which may seem odd, but people still know with the Chamber's logo on the window, and we just have big sign that says Helotes. They stop in. They get information about current events. They can get information about local businesses. And it's also an opportunity for us to engage with them to show kind of our love of the community. Next slide. And we'll go back to what the Business Incubator Program is. And we really are here to accelerate successful development of small businesses. Next slide. We've hit most of these things, accelerated growth. Some of the businesses, one that I actually talked to you guys tonight is a home-based business, but he's looking to really make that next jump and to have employees. And in order to do that, he needs a brick and mortar store, but he cannot afford necessarily retail property here in Helotes. And that's one of the big challenges, right? Almost every single property in Helotes is retail focused. Nothing was purpose built outside of the hill country across into 2-story for offices. And that place stays full. As one of the tenants that actually is here tonight, there's usually a waiting list of people trying to get into that space, again, because it is a more affordable option for a service type business. Some of our best practices moving forward, We've tried to look at the needs of the community, look at what other facilities offer that compete in our space, which we do compete in a co-working space. Yes, it's an incubator, but that is in essence what a co-working center is as well. So we're designing to be flexible. We're always looking at what the trends are to accommodate the space that we've designed. There'll actually be one slide showing that here coming up. We have the ability to have private offices, have meeting rooms, have Zoom rooms. And if we see a need for one over the other, we can quickly adjust and accommodate. So again, some of our partnerships that'll be assisting, especially with business counseling. Here's kind of a conceptual design of the proposed space. We've got most of our private offices kind of on the back wall, conference room up front. The open area is for our visitor center. And then those two white spots is storage area and two restrooms. And then I think on the next slide kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at for our conference room. We want it to be flexible so we can convert it into a training classroom style setup. So we do have training tables, fully equipped, IT. That will be the typical equipment or furniture we offer a tenant with their lease. If they want to bring in their own furniture, they can, but we provide a guest chair, a desk, and then a task chair. Some of our, this is that right now, our best estimate on the revenue model. So we do charge membership fees to belong to the business center. That is a one-time fee, pretty much to cover the onboarding cost. And then private offices will range from $500 to $950. We will have the opportunity to offer co-working space, which is just not a private office. You may have 2 to 3, 4 people share that space. Virtual office is pretty much just a mail delivery center. So part of the space in the back private office area, we will have kind of PO boxes in essence. So if a business wants to utilize our address as a Helotes business address, we collect their mail and they'll have the ability to come in and get that. Typically, that is a $65 a month service. Lounge access gives a business the ability to come in, access Wi-Fi, access printer. That is a monthly fee, but they don't get a private office. And then day passes, if somebody just wants to test us out, see how everything works, see if the internet's fast enough for them, whatever the case. And then Zoom rooms and meeting rooms are done on an hourly basis. So after our discussion, we went with an industry standard and the backup documentation that was presented to you. Right now, there's a 15 to 17% vacancy rate in office, and it's specifically in co-working office space in San Antonio. This is not a national number. So in our projections, we went with 80% occupancy, 20% vacancy. But even when we go down and we look at a 65% occupancy, we're still right around the 15-year recovery of our initial investment, which if approved tonight will be the $300,000. Wanted to kind of break out some of the expenses. The interior renovations minus your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is about $124,000. That other big component are those features, cutting concrete, adding in the restrooms, the HVAC system to comply with current building codes is one of the largest components. We are required to bring in outside air, and the engineers stated we need about 9 to 10 tons of cooling capacity for 2,500 square feet. And we currently only have 6 tons. So we have to bring in additional unit. And then we do have a contingency just in case we have a few surprises.
All right. Thank you. Then I will continue.
Sorry.
I appreciate that. And you really just highlighted, and by the way, much excellent presentation, sir. And I appreciate you putting up both scenarios there. Where it ends up, 10, 15, or somewhere in between, I believe it'll probably be 15. Your estimates are there. In my opinion, it is a much better pro forma financial analysis, not saying that we're gonna have this paid off in 5 or 6 years, much more realistic. And I think it leaves you the potential to be able to have this paid off in 10 years. Wouldn't be unreasonable to achieve, or maybe even better. We did have email sent in from council member Sanders, who was unable to attend because of out of town business commitments. He wanted to share some of his thoughts. I'm scrolling through here concerning this item. He said, as you recall, the EDC approached the Helotes City Council on this topic multiple times in the past and previously voted to approve the initial $250,000 to support tonight's agenda item number 16, since he felt the small business incubator concept was a good idea for our business community. His concern during the last city council meeting had to do with lack of confidence in the presented analytics and how long it would take to reach a break-even point on this venture, and how the EDC wanted to spend the additional $50,000 to finish the project. He voted no at that meeting because he felt he needed more information and time to understand the EDC proposed plan before he could make a well-informed decision. After participating in the aforementioned meetings, he now feels more confident the EDC plan is sustainable and the break-even point somewhere between 10 and 14 years. He believes this sort of endeavor would foster more small business activity in Helotes and should still be pursued. Obviously, he expects the EDC to adjust their operations plan as things unfold and the business center revenue flow dictate what changes adjustments are required. His only reservation with this agenda topic is that he feels the EDC is still trying to unnecessarily pay for premier services and visual effects. For example, high-speed fiber internet and facades to achieve their business, exterior facade to achieve their business incubator objectives. In this regard, he believes a more conservative approach is needed to save costs up front, yet still allow the visitor business center to open. Once the facility is open, he expects the EDC to closely monitor customer satisfaction, occupancy use rates, and revenue flows to determine if future modifications to the operations and facilities are necessary. Bottom line, he personally would only support the increase from $250,000 to $300,000 to build the visitor center if the EDC would significantly reduce the cost of internet services that were previously approved by council, and if the EDC did not use the additional $50,000 to change the facade of the facility. So he's not here, he's not present, so his vote is not going to be counted. He's just stating his opinions on that, which sounds like that mirrors what your concerns were about approving the additional money. In my review of it, the bids are higher than what anybody was anticipated. We saw that on our own thing. Right now, I believe you're submitting for 282 or 283,000 for the finish out bid is your lowest bid, and then an additional 17,000 for exterior windows. I'm in support of moving forward that with the new financials and new expectations of where this would actually pay off. But I have to agree on the concern about the extensive cost of the internet. As you and I discussed, outside of rent, it is the single largest expense of this entire venture. It's not quite, you have a new amount, it's about $600 a month or $7,200, and over the course of 20 years, that's about $144,000 on internet, not counting any price increases. That would, by eliminating that and requiring people, a lot of people have internet on their phones and their iPads from cellular service, or they may not even need internet in a small mom and pop shop that's just opening up. But providing a general access like a Verizon Cube, which might cost $70 or $100 a month, and anybody can tap into it, and still allow anybody that does need dedicated or private service to be able to bring in their own internet, like your current tenant does. The chamber, I think, is a reasonable way to make this a lot more financially successful and still meet the needs and help warrant spending additional money for the wanted facade of the additional windows. They're not talking about the wooden facade, they're talking about specialized windows, and I can support that. I only vote if there's a tie, but we had 2 council member.
Okay, Glenn, can you respond to that about the internet?
Do you have a?
So
You may have-
I'm not an IT expert by any means. It was recommended that we go with a dedicated fiber because the way it's kind of explained, if you go out to 1604, if they had an HOV lane, if you're in the regular lane, you've got bumper to bumper traffic, at 5 o'clock. Yet the HOV lane is moving through. So if you're on a standard business internet connection, it's a shared connection. So just because you pay for 100 megabyte, you don't get 100 megabyte. You can run speed tests at any point of the day. You might get 30, you might get 40. It depends. It depends on the usage of everyone else on that line. So with dedicated fiber, you are the only individual in that lane. So when you pay for 50 megs upload, 50 megs download, that's exactly what you get. So based on the number of devices per individual, which right now there's some estimates that say you have personally on you 8 devices that connect to Wi-Fi. And so if I have 8 tenants times 8 devices, and that's not even your phone, your watch, your computer, I mean, it adds up quick, all takes bandwidth. And then if you try to have a video conference, that takes up massive bandwidth. I'm not opposed to evaluating, and if it's even a matter of bringing in 2 business lines that can accommodate, I'm not the expert in it. So I rely on people like RX Technology and IT professionals to tell me what the needs are. So it was recommended, Marion recommended going to Spectrum and AT&T both, and they both said the 50 by 50 dedicated fiber is what's needed. And yes, that is a
lot of internet.
There is a third party, North Vision Technology, who did our security package. Because you got to remember, we also have cameras, access control, all that runs on internet.
No, go ahead.
Oh, internet is so central to every.
Right.
And when it doesn't work at our house and we've got business we're doing and we're working from home, it's a huge issue. And
that's what happened here with the city. We went with the dedicated line, and I actually went with a lower dedicated line thinking, okay, we're gonna be okay because it's dedicated. And it wasn't. We were not able to upload and download videos that we needed to for PD and so forth. Yes, it's a different factor from EDC, but it does video conferencing, any kind of video you use does take up a lot of bandwidth.
So the question we have here that's, I feel, from summarizing from meetings and conversations with you, conversations with Blaine Lopez, chairman of the EDC board, is that one, we're wanting more money. Council's apparently concerned about how much we put in and the break even and the overall long-term benefit to the citizens of Helotes, outside of just the people that we are specifically helping with artificially low costs. And the suggestion that was come up, and I had talked with Blaine as well, and as with you, that if we pulled out that internet, we can still pre-wire for internet, and each tenant can come in and bring their own internet. If they need a dedicated line, they can get the same service that the Chamber of Commerce has. The entire Chamber of Commerce runs on their own separate. They're not running off your fiber, and your fiber and your security is actually going to be running on the city's fiber. So to be sure, that fiber optic is not covering the security or any of the EDC's actual needs. That's already taken care of. So really the question is, a mom and pop shop who is coming in there to sign a document because their business is so small that they can't actually afford it, is probably not going to have the demands of the entire city of municipal buildings of all Helotes and police reports and everything, et cetera, that goes in with that. So the question is, if we can make this a lot more fiscally viable, which is what Councilmember Massey was saying, approve the extra money, get you what you want, and put the whole 300,000 into it, but hold off on the internet, and I can certainly support that. So you didn't get a chance yet?
I did not. So with this whole internet thing, this throws a curveball in the whole thing, because I thought we had already discussed this and had this whole thing done. But since we're here, Like how you now have to justify this. And I don't know how you do that. But here we are. I can see a need for this, right? I can see a need for this because it's not just, I don't see just one or two mom and pop shops in there. I see like, I've done a little homework here and there's probably a few businesses that are trying to get out of their homes that all require business. The gentleman that was here earlier, the previous councilman, he's got a marketing business and a newspaper. This requires bandwidth.
Correct.
I mean, bandwidth plus meetings and all of these items. I mean, this requires bandwidth. So I'm kind of at a loss right now as to why I thought this was kind of a done deal.
Okay. All right. Any other further? Okay. Well, what's up for vote is the approval of the renovation of amending the renovation budget to increase from 250,000 to 300,000. Specifically for the bid that was already received for the remodeling and for $17,500 for additional glass on the front, not for the wooden facade, correct? Correct. Okay. Make sure we are clear on our term of what facade means, because the glass does contribute to facade.
Yeah.
But we're talking about glass and
Not a wood facade.
window frames and whatnot, not wooden facade. Okay. All right, so it's time to vote. All in favor of approving item number 16 as written, say aye. Aye. I'm
Aye.
sorry, I heard two, what did you say?
Aye.
Aye, okay, I have three, all opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
At this point, thank you for enduring this relatively long council member or meeting. And we are going to be adjourning into closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, and section 551.074, personnel matters, to include negotiations with respect to annexation and development agreement related to Brycewood subdivision unit 6A, and matters to deliberate the performance evaluation duties and discipline of city employee. No decisions will be made, and we'll be returning to adjourn. I bid you all a good night. For those that will be leaving, we shall return. We are adjourned to executive session at 9:40 p.m.
I will.
Right, we are back and we are back on audio. There we go. Okay. We resume. No decisions were made, no actions were taken. We are back here at 10:13 and we are adjourning at 10:13. We are adjourned.